The Chess Player is my first taste of Satyajit Ray's filmography, the famous Indian filmmaker. It's a curious little film about a king of one of the last independent kingdoms of India. The British come along and, as they do and as they have done, are licking their lips with the intent of seizing this land and send in General Outram, played by Richard Attenborough, to a covert mission to clear the way, shall we say. Whilst pressure piles up and the sly political maneuvers are made, Wazir Ali Shah, the king, instead of calling to arms, decides to continue composing and singing poems and songs. Meanwhile, two rather eccentric noblemen, oblivious to the changing climate around them, whether it's the approaching threat of the British or the covert operations of a different kind from one of their wives, spend all day and night playing chess with each other. Nothing can separate these two from their bloody chess games. From it first seemingly being a slightly obsessive hobby, we learn that they're willing to travel far and wide so long as everyone and everything leaves them alone and they get to play their chess. It descends into a right farce of head-shaking lunacy, seeing them even use fruit and vegetables when their chess pieces are stolen. The Chess Player is not the typical Indian film I'm used to. Sure, there are two musical numbers. I had to forward those, going against my philosophy of watching every minute of every movie I see, but it is not at all dependent on its story, nor are there any clichés to be found. It's surprisingly deep thematically, methodical and deliberate as an exploration of denial, but unpretentious enough to ease up with rather slapstick humour and such. I guess the two blissful chess players, who should have been there for the king when he needed them, are a metaphor for the king and India in general. I don't know if this was the filmmaker's intent, but I'll have a crack at deciphering it. So basically, the nobleman who's the more alpha of the two is a representation of the king, despite the ruler being quite a tranquil and chill dude. In fact, that's precisely the problem, in that in his jovial chasing of personal joys like listening to poems, he shuns his duty as king, much like the nobleman shuns his duty towards his lonely wife, who grows to resent her husband due to the lack of attention he shows her, much like how we're told that apparently the common folk have grown to dislike the king. The other nobleman, I guess, is also a representation of the king, though highlighting a different problem caused by his lack of awareness. This nobleman's wife is in cahoots with the man's own nephew, and it's so painfully obvious that he even finds him hiding under his bed with the wife in the same room and isn't able to put two and two together. This is much like the king's utter ignorance at the growing power of the British until it is too late, and both the king and the nobleman are struck with terrible embarrassment and pain at the moment of truth, and both their fates are ultimately the same, becoming common folk in the eyes of the new British rulers. So what do you think? Does that make sense as an interpretation of the film? I tried. To add, I also felt the film was quite fiercely charged, under the radar of vegetable chess pieces and humorous animated segments. There seems to be a finger pointing going on at the Indian people, like the film is saying it's your fault for losing everything and for being blind and stupid whilst the British came and took your rights away. The chess player's ultimately pointless but strategic moves on the board could have been much more useful on the grand board in the face of the British, but alas, the gluttony of the two men squanders their potential. In their state of submissiveness and inaction, smoking their pipes and sneaking in a game of chess wherever they can, even if it means the world around them crumbles. Many elements of the film, from the chess players to Attenborough's condensing Outram, who simply cannot understand the culture of those he is seeking to control, to the revelation that a vast number of the invading troops are Indian themselves, lend the film to act as a metaphor for not just 19th century India, but other areas of history, most notably current US Middle East politics, or the fall of the Ottoman Empire, the last Islamic Caliphate, at the hands of infighting and British infiltration. In fact, the characters in the movie are supposed to be Muslim, furthering the validation of this outlook. It's not for everyone, it's an art film, and one that moves at a snail's pace at that, but it's a thoroughly entertaining political satire. I give it an 8 out of 10.